Hi, this is Mike Spivey with the Spivey Consulting Group, and I am about to do a podcast on sort of how the rest of the 2019-2020 law school admission cycle, our best guess as to how it's going to shape out. It has been the most unusual of cycles in the 20 plus years I've been doing this, and I think collectively, my firm's in agreement that this is the hardest cycle to sort of get a hold of. So really, that's 175 plus years of admissions people saying, wow, this is quirky. It's quirky for a lot of reasons. I'll talk about those. But if you only want to listen to 1 minute of the podcast, my best stab at this, based on lots of data, some that everyone has, some that only we have, based on 20 years of seeing things shake out, based on talking to deans of admissions, my best guess is this is going to be a very slow cycle that favors softs at the end. So I'm going to call it a slow, soft cycle. Why is it so quirky? Well, to begin with, as you know, probably, July was a one-time only ever test where you got your score and had the ability to cancel. That obviously changed things dramatically because there were a lot more cancellations. In fact, a lot more people just taking it as a practice test. So when admissions officers look at the July data, they're looking at something they've never seen before, so they can't really use that for forecasting this cycle. Number two, we now switched to 100% digital. That has caused some test center problems. That's probably politely stated. Dave Kaloran at PowerScore has tracked, if not most, all of them, and there's a number of issues with test centers, which has slowed down, degraded the process, which then slows down in the data that law schools get. There are 2 times as many administered test dates this cycle as there has been in previous cycles. Having more LSAC test administration doesn't make more people want to go to law school, but it spaces things out. And what happens when things are spaced out is it slows the cycle down. So not only does that innately slow the cycle down, but it also gives, again, law school admissions offices less comparative data. What law school admissions offices crave is data that they can relate to so that they can predict how to admit at what temperance during a current cycle. They do not have that this cycle, hence the slowness. And it's been really high at the top. 165 and up, LSAT scores are up. 170 and up are up significantly. So things have been high at the top. There's been a lot of changes, and because of this, admissions offices are scratching their heads. They had the luxury to go slower. They have an influx at the high end, so they are going slower. What that doesn't mean is it doesn't mean that a law school can't fill a class, right? They exist to make money. They exist to disseminate knowledge and create knowledge and to prepare you for law school, but they have to make money to stay in existence. So there are going to be deluges of admits. There's going to be waves. We don't know when. I am historically bad at predicting when waves will come. What we do know is there's a lot more admitting to do. There will likely be some pretty big waves, we think, in late February, early March. And then what you're going to see is you're going to see some waitlist movement, and you're going to see those start from the top, and then they're domino effects. So when the top schools take people off the wait list, then a week later, the school's right below them. A week later, the school's right below them. It's called summer melting. It happens every year. We think it's going to happen pretty significantly this year. There's a couple changes you all probably don't know about, which I want to cover as well. There's 2 big ones. The first favors you, the applicant. It is the following. In mid-May, law schools get something called a commitment overlap report. What that report is it shows you how many people are committed, not just at your law school with a seat deposit, but at other law schools. Years ago, maybe, 5, 8, 10, law schools petitioned or championed that LSAC. Keep in mind that LSAC is not a governing body like the ABA. They kind of exist to serve applicants in law schools. But, they listen to law schools. So law schools petitioned that commitment overlap include applicant names. That was a big change. So if your name is Mike Spivey and you're committed to Penn, Duke, Columbia, if you deposited those 3 schools, you're likely going to get a phone call May 16th from Duke, Penn, and Columbia saying, we see that you not only have you committed to us, but to other schools. You have a week to tell us what you're going to do, or we have the right to rescind your offer of admission. Well, guess what? Good news. Your name is no longer on that list. For whatever reason, probably having to do, maybe, if my best guess, with LSAC having a new general counsel and some lawsuits, but I'm not sure. Starting this year now, they've gone back to the much older version where a school will see how many people they have double, triple, quadruple, etc. deposited, but they will have no idea who that is. That is great news for you. What it does mean, though, is probably schools are going to be, since they can't make targeted admits off the wait list, they're going to be waitlisting more people. So we expect to see more waitlists and hence more waitlist movement. On the flip side of things, in the bad news department, again, keep in mind, LSAC is not a governing agency. They can't really tell you what to do if you're a law school. They used to have this statement of good practices that said that you can't ask for seat deposits before April 1. And what's happened is I think there's been sort of a slow movement away from that by schools anyways, subtly asking for, if they gave you a full scholarship, ask for your deposit or commitment, et cetera. So they actually just got rid of that April 1 deadline altogether. The language in there now just says that after admitting you, they need to give you a reasonable amount of time, which is not defined. And I'm going to pretty much I hate to make guarantees, so I'll all but guarantee that late in the cycle for some schools, that period of time is going to be 24 to 48 hours. They admit you off the wait list and they say you have a day or two to tell us if you're coming or we're going to withdraw your admission. That's problematic, but it's not if it's your dream school and you want to go. The bigger problem is this. What we foresee happening is more of the high-end scholarships becoming exploding offers. What that means is, hey, we just admitted you, we're Princeton Law School, and we're going to give you a full scholarship, but you need to deposit and sign this commitment letter by February 15th telling us you're coming to this school and no others. That would be an exploding offer. What I would say is, this is the kind of stuff we talk through deeply with our clients that is tough to publicly message other than if you're still torn. I'm going to quote a dean of a law school. You do have free will. A law school can't control your free will. So I would always feel at least comfortable with if a school gives you a deadline you can't meet, trying to talk that out with the school. So what else is going on? Well, again, it gets confusing. If you look at the cycle data today, if you were to sign into LSAC, it would look like the bandwidths are up in all categories. That's a huge false positive. The reason why is we currently have this year's January test data plugged into the data set. But last year, that didn't happen until, I think, a week or two after today's date. So we're not looking at apples. We're looking today at a whole extra test scores that we didn't have last year. So you can't compare apples to apples. So what I've spent the last day and a half doing is trying to disaggregate the extra information. Basically, what we think is going to happen is 165 and above are going to be up. So let me start at that group. Well, I start at the top because movement at the top generally triggers movement in waves down below. So you look at the top 3 schools. The question I get every year is, do you think Yale or Harvard are going to go for, or Stanford are going to go for a 174? The answer is no. I've never seen a 174. Maybe there's been a median 174, but in my 20 plus years, I haven't seen it. But the real answer is it's not really a meaningful number for those schools. Other than a bragging point, it wouldn't really help them in U.S. News rankings. You get increasingly diminished returns as you go up in LSAT points. And it would be hard to pull off and keep a high GPA where you don't have diminished returns. So if you're sitting there on a wait list with a 173 at Harvard and Yale, I wouldn't worry for you about those schools trying to get a 174. Maybe Stanford is going to try to increase their LSAT. I think there might be the capacity to do that. But again, Stanford also understands that diminishing return point, and they have a small class size, so they might be going for other things. I'm going to talk about the soft cycle at the very end of this podcast. I hope you stuck around for it, because that's sort of the big takeaway to me. Chicago lost an LSAT point last year, so maybe Chicago will try to move up from a 170 to 171. I would actually probably anticipate that. So if I had a 171, I think I would probably be looking brighter at Chicago than a 170. But again, this is just me guessing. I'm not the dean of admissions at these schools. What is happening is there's going to be a lot of waitlist movement at these top schools, a lot of slow action. But unless they dramatically increase class sizes, which I do not predict is going to happen, then what you're going to see, and this is great news, I think, for a lot of people, is they are going to have a capacity above their target median LSAT this summer at some point, June, July, where they say, wow, we hit our target of 171. We hit our target of 170. We could lose 55 people in the next month and still maintain that median LSAT. But we need to fill a class. We're going to lose some people. So let's find the 35 applications that are at the top of our list of people who we really want to admit. They might be, our median might be a 171 and they might be a 165, 164. But man, did I enjoy their visit to campus, or boy, did I enjoy their application. I think you're going to see, this is like the happiest takeaway of this podcast, because I think it's going to happen. You are going to see these surprising 164, 162s admitted to schools with medians in the high 169s, 170s. And hopefully if you're listening to this and you're one of those, this becomes your late cycle outcome. It's going to be slow. The mid-range scores, 150 to 165, are probably going to be flat. Again, right now they look up, but the data is not comparable. Below 150 will certainly be down. So schools with LSAT scores below 150 are going to be struggling to keep their medians, and admission to those schools will be easier. At the end of the day, and I'll wrap this up, this is going to be a very painfully slow admission cycle, but it is going to be, I think, a cycle that ultimately favors people with strong applications, strong softs, people who visit campuses and connect with admissions offices. So I hope you're in that in that group. Two final announcements. My firm is going to help sponsor a Predict the U.S. News World Report rankings contest on Reddit. We've done it many years. It's fun. There's prizes that not only we give out, but that some of the people who help run it give out. That'll be on Reddit, and then on my personal Instagram account, I'm gonna, after we close down the competition, I'm gonna make my account private and then put my predictions, because I'm curious how I'll do. I'm not gonna leak them this year like we have for the last 6 or 7 years. The reason I'm gonna make it private and do it after is I don't want those predictions polluting the pool. I do get data that others don't have. The final announcement is we're starting to see this cycle. People saying, "Hey, I'm out. I'm off Reddit. I'm off law school admissions because I have my dream school," and that motivated me when I was on a flight to do a top 10 life lessons learned. I'm going to link it in the blog. Obviously, you don't have to go to it, but every year this is almost a sad time for me. You get to know people online every year who understandably they say I'm done with the admissions process, and so as sort of like a way to almost stay in touch, I started this other blog where I have a top 10 life lessons learned. That'll be linked. Don't worry about any of that. Don't worry about the U.S. News and World Report competition or the other top 10 lessons learned. If you're here for the cycle prediction, slow, but I'm calling this right now a soft cycle. It's going to favor softs. This was Mike Spivey, the Spivey Consulting Group.